Hi, my name is Dale Rogerson and welcome to Dale's Delectables. Today's lesson will be how to make apple jelly. So, obviously we need some apples. So I have some apples here that are soaking in a mixture of water and vinegar. And I have some because I don't want you to have to watch the whole thing going on. The important thing when making apple jelly, stems no good. Everything else goes in. Just cut it in 4, put them in the pot. Once you have, I would say about this much, we add water till it comes to 1 inch below the apples. So, while that's happening, I think I'll add a couple more because I think I have enough. You put too many and it comes to overflow, not so pretty. Been there, done that. I think we would all want to avoid that one. As you can see, once we are about 1 inch below the apples, and voila. Now, we'll go over to the stove, put it on. And we will cook at a medium-low temperature until they're nice and mushy. When you realize that your apples are starting to get mushy, they're starting to fall apart, come on in closer, my camera woman, show this off. As you can see, they're getting nice and mushy, they're well done. Here's where we help them along. With a good old potato masher, any type will do. Mine has little holes. If you have the cool one with the squiggles, I like that one better, but I don't have one. Somehow I lost one in the move or something. We're going to squish this down until it's a nice puree. And once it's been pureed, we're then going to pass on to the next stage, which is to put it through the strainer. I'll be back in a few moments with that. Now that we've reduced it to a puree, I'm going to come over here because I'm not really well equipped. Unlike any other mom who's got a strainer and a bowl, I decided one day to buy myself a jelly bag. Seriously? Like, what is this? I don't use that. What I use is cheesecloth, which I've passed under the water so that it's damp. And I'm going to put this over my strainer. The reason we do this is because if your strainer has big enough holes and you get a few seeds or whatnot, they won't go through if you have a... It doesn't have to be perfect as long as you get the gist of what I'm trying to do here. And these things are never made the same size as your strainer. Whatever, doesn't matter. We do what we can with what we have. So very carefully, because this is hot. Oh, I gotta tell you a little story of what I did last night. In preparation of this, I got all set up. I started putting my puree of apples, and then I started hearing drip, drip, drip. Forgot to put the bowl underneath the strainer. Don't do that. Not a good idea. So here we go. So very carefully so you don't burn yourself. And the bowl is there, as you can see. You go like this. And you can hear that drip. That is your gold that is dripping through. Now I know it would be very, very tempting to take this and to squish your pulp down to get as much as you can. Don't do it. Resist the temptation. This is why you do this at night before going to bed, so that you can't touch it. This way, when you wake up in the morning, your bowl has all the juice in there and your pulp will remain. Otherwise, you can push it down, but you're not going to have a nice clear jelly. It's going to be all cloudy. And who wants that? It's just not pretty. We want it to be nice and clear. And, this particular pot, through experience, is going to give me between 9 and 10 cups of juice. Very slowly. Good to the last apple. Remember, walk away. Do not be tempted. Through the magic of TV, here's the juice that came out of the other apples. Okay, you know it's the truth. I got it from last night. I got 8 cups of juice out of that whole pot, minus what I spilled. And it would be tempting to do the whole pot, but you can't. Jelly it won't gel. It's going to take you twice as long. You're going to swear, you're going to cry. So the maximum you can really do is 4 cups of juice at a time. Take your 4 cups into our pot. And we're going to bring it to a boil. For every 4 cups of juice, we need about 3 cups of sugar. Which of course I can get prepared. So I will prepare now. people will say to heat up the sugar. I did it once, just more of a pain in the neck than anything else. So I'll just add it once my liquid starts boiling. There's two. It's gonna stick, we'll take care of that later. And another one. Usually the ratio is about 75%, so 3 to 4. 3 to 4. So if you do 4 cups, you put 3 cups of sugar. So once this has started boiling, this must be the hardest part of making jelly, is that all that juice is going to give you 3 little pots. See, Levy? That's what we have to do. I almost forgot, it's really important to sterilize your jars. Now I personally have, it's called a pressure canner, so I don't have to, but what I do is I make sure that I wash my jars and I keep them warm. So I've just put them in. They have to be warm because a hot jelly going into a cold jar is going to blow up. If you're using a regular pot to can your jars, do ensure that you boil them in boiling water for at least 5 minutes, and then you can take them directly from there and put in your jelly. But for my case, because I have a canner, I just heat them, wet them, and put them in a hot oven. So as well as sterilizing your jars, you must sterilize your lids. You cannot escape this because this will help the sealing process. So it goes into water, which I will bring to a boil with the wrong heat. That's going to really help. So what I do is I'll bring it to a boil, and after that I'll warm it up. It'll be there long enough. This has started boiling. So now that it has started boiling, we will add our sugar. Which is all stuck to the sides because it's the same jars I use for my food. Waste not, want not. What I do is I will bring it back to the boil, and I'm going to let it boil pretty hard for a good 25 minutes. Now, if I had a candy thermometer, which I do somewhere in this house, but I never use it, I would bring it to a boil, and we would have to go up to 225 degrees, and then it's supposed to be at the jellying stage. But somehow it reaches 225 degrees too soon for it to jelly for me. So I use the old tried and true method. I take a saucer, which I've just lost. I will take a new one. And I would put it in the freezer so that it's cold. So when it's time to test it, I'm going to take my cold saucer out, and I'll show you that later. See this white stuff here? I like to call it the schmeg. You have to skim it off. If you don't skim it off, if you don't skim it off, it's not that it's a bad thing, it's just not going to be pretty, and when you mix it into your jelly, you're going to have all these white things floating inside, which is not very attractive. So you take it off whenever you see it. I find that if you take it off closer to the end than in the beginning, then you'll have a lot more jelly left. Otherwise, somehow it keeps forming and forming and forming. So whatever's near the end, you remove it. Since we're close to the end of the cooking time, I'm starting now. Okay, my timer's gone off. It's been boiling for 25 minutes. I want to do a test now. Technically, I should turn it off, but I'm going to live on the edge. Here's that saucer that I put in the freezer. I will put a little sample, and it will go back in the freezer for 2 minutes. So then I will test its doneness. Okay, so the beeper just went off. I took this out of the freezer, and the test that you do is you push it like this. If it makes like a little, it's close but not quite. It'll be all stuck together, you'll see. So we're going to put it back in the freezer. Okay, so I gave it another 5 minutes. So now you can see that, see that texture? It is ready. That is jelly, baby. Okay, so the jelly is ready. I will take my pot that is warmed up in the oven. Best invention ever. I've been using it for 20 years. It's still working. And between that, and you pour your ruby liquid into your pot. Making sure you don't pick up any of the schmeg, but if you do, well, then you just keep that jar for yourself. There you go. You fill it to 1/4 of an inch. wipe the edge, because if there's any jelly on the edge, your rim will not, it's hot, be careful, your rim will not stick. Normally you would pass a spatula to make sure that there's no bubbles, but with jelly I find that there's never bubbles, so I'd rather not disturb it. Take your cover, just one, put it on top, and voila, there's your jelly. And continue with the rest of the pots. When it's time to process them, I'm not going to process them on this episode because I only have 3 pots, and I have, like I mentioned, I have a huge canner. But if you were to do it, you would put it in a pot, cover it with about this much above your pot, about a good 1.5 to 2 inches above your pots, put them on a rack, bring it to a boil with the cover on, and you let it boil for a good 5 minutes minimum to make sure that, and make sure there's no steam escaping. Once that's done, you're going to hear your lids snap, and you'll be okay. You can keep it for over a year. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can make your own jelly anytime soon.